الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. أما بعد. Okay. So before we begin, we'd like to do what we always like to do in the beginning, which is review from last week. So who can tell us what is the simplest way to wash the dead body? If you don't remember all the details and everything, it was very simple, 3-step process. Yes. It's like taking a shower. Yes. First step is to wash the impurity, just like we wash on ourselves, but while we are alive. Second, make wudu. Third, yes, start from the right side, start from the head and the right side, and then wash the whole body, right? So it was a very simple process, which is that washing of the dead body is similar to washing of the living body. Okay, and the sunnah way of washing ourselves, the sunnah way of making ghusl, is actually the first thing we do is to remove impurity from anywhere that's on our body. And where is most amount of impurity assumed to be? The private part. Okay, so the most amount of impurity happens to be in the private areas. So the first thing, we begin with washing the private parts. Washing the private parts. And then the next thing that we do is that we make wudu for the person. Okay, and even when we who is talking? Okay. Do I need to pay them a visit?
I think so. Yeah, you should. People are trying to get certified.
And the kids, people are trying to get certified here, brothers. Come on. And by the way, that reminds me that there's a sign-up sheet going. If you signed up last week, please sign up today as well, and then you will have the certification, inshallah. Also, this sign-up sheet is going to come upstairs. So whoever signed up upstairs can sign up as well. Also, whoever is on the phone, if you signed up, if you attended last week and you attended this week, you can just send me a text message or an email, and inshallah we'll put you in that list of certification as well. We're going to believe that if you're saying you were there, you were there. We're not going to check, although we can check. Right now I can see all the people that are there, and I can see their phone numbers and caller ID. So, okay. What are some of the bid'at associated with washing the dead body? What are some of the innovations that we discussed last week? Things which are not good. Okay, so if someone has a armpit, someone has a mustache, and it's big, is it okay to trim the mustache?
No.
How about like armpit hair or pubic hair or anything like that?
No.
No.
Just can comb a little bit.
Okay, the only thing you can do is comb the hair of the head. Okay? Yes. Yes, you shouldn't move the body too much, right? Because the body is already in a state of, basically it's going to decompose slowly, and it's going to stiffen, it's going to become stiff. So you don't want to move it too much. Take it easy on the body and just move a little bit. And also, before you start washing, you want to kind of free up the joints a little bit. Okay, just a little bit, but not too much, obviously. If the body has gotten stiff, okay, basically what happens is that when someone dies, they call the funeral home, and the funeral home, actually the hospital, they move the person into the morgue. Morgue is where it's freezing temperature. Okay? From there, the funeral home, when they arrive, they take the body from the morgue and they take it to the funeral home and they put it in their freezer as well. Okay? So when the person is going to be washed, so they usually, this is we're talking about America, he's taken out of the freezer. So it is as if he died maybe like an hour ago. Okay? So you wouldn't see much because if he was frozen right away. But if someone was not frozen, okay, maybe somebody, may Allah protect us, someone was killed and they were left out in the woods or something like that, and they were not frozen, then their body is going to start to decompose, okay? And it's going to get really stiff. It's going to get really stiff and it's going to start to expand, okay? So that's a different case, but mostly it doesn't happen like that. Now, in Muslim countries, they don't have a funeral home. Okay, in Muslim countries, the only thing they have generally is that a person dies at home or at the hospital. So they just have to take the body to the hospital to declare like a time of death type of thing. I'm guessing there are some villages where they don't even have that, where maybe a doctor will come and examine and then they will make a death certificate based on that, right? So over there, the process takes hours. So basically, as soon as the person dies, maybe like 2-3 hours later, they will just wait for some people to arrive and relatives to arrive and this and that, realize that, okay, someone has died, get back to their senses, and then they will wash the body, and then they will shroud the body, and then they will take him to the burial. So sometimes it's common that someone dies maybe around Zohar time, and before Maghrib he's already buried. Okay? Someone dies, that's the way it should be. That's the way it should be, that it shouldn't take too long. It should not take too long. Okay, so today we're going to talk about the shrouding. Okay, shrouding, also called kafan in Arabic. What is the ruling? What is the ruling on shrouding the body? Is it mustahab? Is it fard? Is it just our choice? What do you think? Can we bury somebody without shrouding them?
No.
If we shroud them, if we don't shroud them, are we sinning? Yes? No?
No.
No.
Yes, we are. Okay, shrouding is fard kifaya. Shrouding, basically almost everything in the janaza is fard kifaya, which means that it is not fard ayn, which is that every single person doesn't have to do it, but some people have to do certain things that need to be done. Okay, if a Muslim was to die and no one shrouded him, then all of the Muslim community of that area would be sinful. If no one washed him, then all of the Muslim community will be sinful, right? If a Muslim died and no one prayed janazah over him, then all of the Muslim community of that area is going to be sinful. Okay? And that's why, by the way, I don't know if you remember that about 10-11 days ago we had a janazah. The brother who passed away, who we buried on Friday, his wife, when she died, and we went to the cemetery, there was a janazah of a baby there. Okay? And they said that his janazah had not been prayed. Her janazah, it was a little girl, 6 weeks old, she had died. Her janazah had not been prayed, so we prayed her janazah in the cemetery. Okay? And then after this time I told the brother from the funeral home, I said, look, it's not recommended to pray the janazah in the cemetery, unless it's necessary. That was a case in which it was necessary. Okay? But in the future cases, if there is someone, because basically he said we asked the family that, do you want to do the janazah in the masjid? They said, no, we don't want to do it in the masjid. They said, do you want to do the janazah in the funeral home? They said, no, we don't want to do it. So the only option left is, the cemetery, which is kind of like, it's not right. The funeral home needs to tell them that, look, the Islamic way is that you have to do the janazah, right? And now in Muslim world, the cemetery have a spot which is specific for this job, for praying janazah over there. They don't have any graves over there. Okay? In this cemetery, when we prayed the janazah, we basically had to find a place which was not yet occupied with graves. Okay? It was not yet occupied with graves, but eventually it will be. It's not a place specific for that. So this is a place that should be avoided. It should be avoided. So I told them in the future, if you have a case like this, give me a text message or a call, and we will announce it at the masjid. And after one of the prayers, maybe Zohar or Asr, whichever prayer, we will just bring a whole bunch of people who are at the masjid to the funeral home, and we'll pray the janazah right there to fulfill the obligation. And then you can go and you can bury them. You don't have to pray the janazah in the cemetery. So if that does happen in the future, so don't be lazy, but step up. Mostly what we will do is that Whoever is at the masjid will say, let's go to the funeral home and we're going to pray janazah for a Muslim brother whose family, sometimes they don't understand Islam. Sometimes they're not Muslim, but the person is Muslim. So in these cases, we have to do things like this. So,
Concept is like a diet janaza.
what is that?
Diet janaza, like you don't have to be there. You can do it.
The janaza, which is actually we're going to cover that in the next week's class, or the next class, which is not going to be next week. Okay, the next class is not going to be next week; it's going to be the week after. The Salatul Janaza al-Ghaibiyya, or which is called absentia, Salat, funeral prayer in absentia,
In absence of
in absence of the dead body. Okay, this is done in few cases. One of the cases, according to some scholars, is that if someone dies who was well known to the Muslim Ummah and he had done some service to the Muslim Ummah. Okay, so let's say maybe a righteous king dies. Okay, so then even though his body is not here and he's not here, it's recommended to pray janazah according to some scholars. Okay, because they said that the Prophet ﷺ, he prayed janazah of Najashi. Okay, and this is the only janazah that he prayed of Najashi, and of someone in without his body being there. This was the only one. Okay, so some of the scholars said that the reason why he did it is because Najashi was a righteous king who helped the Muslim Ummah by giving them shelter when they needed it the most. Okay, the other scholars, they said, no, Salatul Janaza in absentia is only for those people whose Janaza was not prayed for some reason. Okay, maybe they were buried without praying Janaza over them. Okay, maybe they were in prison and they were buried, maybe they were executed, or they got killed in prison, or they died in prison, and the non-Muslims maybe just buried them. So when we hear about them, then there are two options. Either we can pray janazah over them in just our regular area, or there's another option, which is that we can go to the grave of that specific person and we can pray the janazah right there at his grave. Okay, the Prophet ﷺ did this with some people who were buried without him having a chance to pray janazah over them. So the Prophet went to the grave and prayed over there. Okay? The third group of scholars, they said that there is no janazah in absence of the dead body. There is no janazah in absence of the dead body. So what do they say about the hadith, which is well known, which is the Prophet prayed janazah over Najashi? What do you think? They said, well, in the case of Najashi, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought the body of Najashi in front of the Prophet as a miracle. Like other people couldn't see it, but the Prophet could see it. Okay? And the Prophet did not pray the janazah in absentia, but actually the Prophet was looking at the body and it was in front of him. Okay? So they say, no, it was a miracle and it was a special thing. And they say the reason for this, the reason why they say this, is because they say that there were many other companions of the Prophet that were killed in faraway lands in the time of the Prophet, but the Prophet never prayed their Salatul Janazah in absentia. Okay, so this is a debate. Inshallah, we'll discuss it more. Basically, the more practical opinion and the understandable opinion is that if someone's janazah was not prayed, then we can pray his janazah without him. If maybe he was killed, or for some reason his janazah was not prayed, and we cannot go to his grave and pray there, then we can pray without him being there. Okay? Did you have a question?
Yeah, sometimes it's Asian. 2-3 times janaza. Is it famous when he died in city one time, then local is busy before the body for one time. What is that? Is right?
Actually, this is in the next chapter, so we will discuss that there, which is the issue of multiple janazas. Okay? Like for example, my family lives in New York, and I'm here with you. So if I die, you would want to, I hope you want to pray janazah over me. And also my family and a lot of my old friends at other masajid where I've been imam, they would want to pray janazah over me too. So can you pray 2 janazahs over me, or must everyone come here or go there? Okay? So actually, this is allowed. This is allowed. There's no problem with it because the Prophet ﷺ's janazah was prayed over by 140 some thousand companions, and they did not have space, so they prayed in groups of 10. Okay, so there were like hundreds of janazah upon the Prophet ﷺ. But once again, any questions with regards to the janazah prayer or the actual burial, we will cover in the next class. Okay, so let's get back to the coffin. So the Prophet ﷺ, he commanded Atiyya radiallahu anha that to wrap his daughter Zainab radiallahu anha with his izar as a coffin. And the Prophet ﷺ, he commanded in many cases for the person to be shrouded, and he did it himself for many people. Now the Prophet, what is a good shroud? What is a good shroud? The Prophet ﷺ, he gave a speech one day in which he mentioned one of his companions who died and was shrouded in a short shroud and buried during the night. Okay, his shroud was short and he was buried during the night. So the Prophet ﷺ prohibited that a man be buried during the night before the janazah prayer could be performed for him, unless one is forced to do that. And he added that one of you shrouds his brother, let him do it well if he can. Okay? فَلْيُحْسِنْ كَفْنَهُ, that let him do it well. So what does it mean? What does it mean? Also the Prophet said, when one of you is responsible for his brother, let him shroud him well, because they will be resurrected in their shrouds. The person will be resurrected in their shroud. What does shrouding well mean? Shrouding well means that number one, the shroud should be clean. It should be clean. Number two, the shroud should be thick, as in that it should not be see-through. Okay, it should not be so thin that you can see through it by one, or when you put three together, even one of them should not be see-through. So it should be a little bit of quality material. Okay, it should not be very cheap material. Also, it should be long enough. It should be long enough to cover the entire body. It should be long enough to cover the entire body, and it should not be too expensive or too cheap. It should be of moderate cost. It should be of moderate cost. Okay. Some of the scholars, they said that the coffin, the quality of the coffin should be like the quality of the person's clothes while he was alive. Okay.
Where the color?
The color, yes, color is coming. Color is coming. So this is actually not a good opinion because if someone was living in style, right, he was wearing like $400, sneakers and $95 shirts and underwear, which is like $37, and that kind of stuff. So you're not gonna buy him a shroud which is like made of gold or something like that, right? So actually, this opinion does not have any basis. The best advice is the advice of the Prophet ﷺ, which is that it should be moderate for all. Okay, for rich, for poor, whoever it should be a shroud of good quality, decent quality. It should not be too expensive, and it should not be too cheap.
Not branded.
It should be branded. Are there branded coffins? Junaid Jamshed coffins. Huh? Tommy Hilfiger coffins. Is there something like that? Yeah, actually, this is a common thing that we will discuss, which is so. How many sheets should there be in the coffin? How many sheets should there be in the coffin? 3? Yes.
4. Yeah.
4? What? What are the sisters saying? Ladies 5. Men are 3 and ladies are 5. Okay. Anyone else? What's the opinion for the ladies are 5?
Yeah, it's a 5, we know that.
The Prophet ﷺ, his coffin was 3. Okay, and no one else should be more than that. There is no one should have more than that, and this includes the ladies. Okay? And by the way, there's a misconception, which is that in Islam, rulings differ between men and women. In most cases, the rulings between men and women are the same. Okay? Men and women, most cases, the ruling are the same unless it was specifically specified by the Prophet ﷺ that women should do this and the men should do this. So it is best to shroud the body in 3 plain sheets of cloth. Aisha radiallahu anha reported, Allah's Messenger ﷺ was shrouded in 3 white cotton Yemeni sheets from Sahul. None of them was a shirt or a turban. He was simply put over and wrapped in them. Okay, as we will do with this dead guy right here. This clearly indicates that the sheets do not have any buttons, nor any of them was a shirt, as was mentioned in a weak report. Meaning that the shroud should not be sewn. Okay, it should not be sewn. It should not be a shirt which has a collar or anything like that. This is not correct. This is based on a weak report. It is permissible to shroud the body in less than 3 sheets. It is permissible to, as in the case of the person who is in ihram. The person who is in ihram, he is shrouded in 2 sheets. And what are these 2 sheets? The 2 sheets that he is wearing. His ihram, the top and the bottom, he is actually shrouded in these 2, and that's it. Okay? On the other hand, it is not recommended to use more than 3 sheets, because that would exceed the number of sheets used to shroud the Messenger of Allah ﷺ. Furthermore, this would be an act of waste of money, as will be explained later. This applies both to men and women. Okay, that the number of sheets is 3. As for the report saying that the Prophet ﷺ was shrouded in 7 sheets, or that his daughter was shrouded in 5 sheets, they are all weak reports. They are all weak reports. The shroud's color, as the question is, that the shroud has 2 colors. Okay, primarily the best color of the shroud is white. The best color of the shroud is white. And what is another color which is recommended? Who knows? Black? No. Green? Blue? Why blue? Because of the American flag. No? Why green? Who said green? Why green? Why is it green? Yes.
I would assume because it was Muhammad, he's one of the favorite color.
That's not true also. Yes. Yes. The green is the color of Islam. That's also not true. Green, some people associate green with Islam, but this is actually not true. If anything, the favorite color in Islam is white. Okay, and this is based on this hadith, which is that the Prophet ﷺ said that the Prophet ﷺ said, "Albithu thiyab al-bayt, فإنها أطهر وأطيب وكفنوا فيها موتاكم." Wear white clothes. Wear white clothes because they are cleaner and better. And shroud your dead in them. And shroud your dead in them. The second color is actually not exactly a color, it's actually a texture, which is striped design. Okay, so basically, any of these striped clothes here. This is actually the Prophet ﷺ. He said, "Whoever can afford it, let him be shrouded in a striped cloth." Let him be shrouded in a striped cloth. So sometimes what is common is that they will use 2 white sheets and 1 striped cloth, white striped sheet, and they will put that in the middle. Okay? So now the question is that, okay, we understand white is recommended. Okay? We understand that striped is recommended. Okay? The question is that are any other colors like white, blue, red, are these allowed? What do you think? Are they allowed or not?
If you not get that white or stripe, maybe that time it will.
We're not saying that if you don't have it available. If someone did it, is it allowed?
No.
Actually, it is allowed, but the recommended color is white. Okay, it is allowed. It can be any color. It could be any color, but the recommended color is white or striped. Also, the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ is that the shroud should be perfumed. It should be perfumed, and it should be perfumed 3 times. Okay, it should be perfumed 3 times. How now? In that time, what they used to do is that they used to burn incense. Okay, they used to burn incense. So how would they shroud? How would they perfume it 3 times? Allahu A'lam, if they would burn it 3 times, or if they would burn it once but kind of go around the shroud and the smoke let it go into the shroud 3 times. Allahu A'lam. But in our time, most of the times we don't have a smoke form of fragrance. What's the form of fragrance we have? We have liquid. We have liquid. So, kafur. So what we can do is that, kafur, it's kind of hard with kafur because they come in cubes, right? So usually what is done is that the cubes are just put in there.
It's coming with a ball.
It's solid, yeah. It's in here. It's in here. So it comes in the form of a cube, basically, right? So usually people just put it in there, right? Also, what I've seen is that some people, they crush it, and they maybe put it on the forehead and this and that. But actually, the sunnah is to perfume the shroud itself. The sunnah is to perfume the shroud itself. So when you burn incense to perfume your dead, do it 3 times. That's what the Prophet ﷺ said. Also, in another report, he said when you burn incense to perfume your dead, do it an odd number of times. Okay, so 3 or 5 or 7, do it an odd number of times. However, the person who is in the state of ihram, he should not be perfumed, because in the state of ihram, you're not supposed to perfume. Okay, so how would you do this? If in our case, maybe you have, in most cases, we would have a liquid form of perfume. So we would just kind of spray the whole sheet 3 times. Okay, just generally. At the end of the day, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is looking at our intentions. One person may define 3 times, doing it 3 times in a different way, and another person may define it 3 times in a different way. When we make wudu, right? When we make wudu, one person may wash his right arm 3 times and then wash his left arm 3 times. Another person may wash his right arm once and then left arm, and then right arm and then left arm, and then right arm and then left arm. Right? Are any one of them necessarily wrong? No. We're doing it 3 times. That's what the Prophet said. Obligation is being done. The recommendation is being done. There's little details. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows our intention. Okay? So if you do it, if you, maybe, just sprinkle over it 3 times, or you perfume, spray it 3 times, or you, burn incense 3 times, just try your best to do it.
Rose water.
Rose water, yes. Rose water is a type of perfume. Rose water is a type of perfume, and there's nothing wrong with it, except that there are other types where rose water is used. For example, rose water is sprinkled over the grave. This is actually not from the sunnah. This is not from the sunnah. That does not need to be done. And we're going to talk later on, planting trees or planting flowers, or putting plants on the grave. These are not things which are from the sunnah. Also, as we mentioned, that the shroud should be moderate. Shroud should be moderate. How do we shroud someone who is in the state of ihram? How do we shroud someone in the state of ihram? Yes. When they are making a hajj or umrah. I mentioned it. You shroud them in their own ihram. Okay, you shroud them in the 2 sheets, one top and bottom. You just shroud them in that, and that's it, nothing else. Okay. What if a shroud, which is a good shroud? What was a good shroud? Who can tell us what's a good shroud? Yes. It should be thick. It should be clean.
Not too expensive.
Not too expensive. Not too expensive.
Not too cheap.
Not too cheap.
Big enough. Big enough. Big enough for the person. Right? So this is a good shroud. This is a good shroud. By the way, does the shroud have to be new, or can it be a used cloth?
New.
Where did we get that from?
Could be used, but it's gotta be clean.
Yeah, it has to be clean, but it doesn't have to be new. Okay, and there are many cases like this that are like, especially the case of the man who's in ihram. He's shrouded in the garments that he was wearing. Okay, for example, the daughter of the Prophet ﷺ, she was shrouded in the izar of the Prophet ﷺ, right? Which is his lower garment, right? He gave that. He said, shroud her in this, which was used, right? And there are many other cases like this. So yes,
The shroud need to be in cotton.
shroud does not need to be in cotton, but that's kind of become the norm. But it doesn't have to be in cotton. But basically, the see-through quality should not be there. So generally, you find that cotton is like that.
Is there any restriction on silk? No silk at all?
Silk would be very expensive, so it's not moderate. Okay, so cotton is basically the moderate cloth, and that's what's used. So there's nothing wrong with it. So what if there isn't a good shroud available? Okay, like for example, let's say the shroud is not clean. All of the clothes that are there are dirty. So what do you do in that case?
Let it clean fast.
Hmm?
Let it clean fast.
If you can't do that, then obviously try your best, which is take the cleanest one amongst them. If you can clean it more, do that. Otherwise, do it. Allah knows the intention. But the main thing is, what if the shroud is not big enough for the person, and you don't have another shroud? What then do you do?
Cover the head, all the way down, reaches, then you cover the, what do we find the rest of the cover? Branches, anything like that?
Okay, there you go. Alhamdulillah, that's actually very 100% correct. Which is that if actually this was the case of one of the companions, Mus'ab ibn Umayr, that when he died, the Muslims were very poor, and he was wearing a garment, and that's the only thing they had to shroud him. So they used that to shroud him, but they said that if this was only one, and he was wearing it, so they took it off and they tried to shroud him in it, and they said that if we covered his face, his head, his feet would be uncovered. And if we covered his feet, his head would be uncovered. Later on, the Sahaba, when the Muslims became rich and they saw the luxuries and stuff come in, they used to cry. They said that we remember the day when Mus'ab ibn Umayr and Hamza radiallahu anhu were killed. We did not have enough cloth to shroud them in. If we covered their head, their feet would be uncovered. If we covered their feet, their head would be uncovered. So in this case, what you do is that the head takes the priority, and we cover the head. And what we do with the feet is put some branches or leaves or whatever is available. We cover it with that. Okay? Can you cover it with dirt? No, not dirt, but leaves or branches or twigs or something like that, or hay. Whatever like natural material other than dirt, because the dirt is gonna go on top of the whole thing anyways. Okay, so that is what needs to be done. Shrouding martyrs. Do the martyrs need to be shrouded? Someone who's killed in battle, for example.
No.
They are shrouded. For example, Mus'ab ibn Umayr, he was killed in battle, but he was shrouded, right? So what it is that whatever clothes they are wearing, those clothes remain on them. And what you do is that you shroud them in one additional sheet. Okay? You shroud them in one additional sheet while they are wearing the clothes in which they were killed, and bury them with it. Okay? Okay. Can you shroud multiple people in one coffin? If there's a need to do so, yes, you can. Okay, if there's a need, for example, in the same battle, they had very little cloth and they had too many people who were killed, so they shrouded multiple people in one shroud. Okay, they shrouded multiple people in one shroud, and also, by the way, multiple people can be buried in one grave as well. Multiple people can be buried in one grave as well. This is actually a common thing in other Muslim countries like Egypt and other countries, where even in Medina I saw that if a baby dies, what they will do is that if there's any other janazah, so they would bury the baby along with the other body. Okay, so they would bury them together. The Prophet ﷺ said that in this case, when there were multiple people in one grave, so the Prophet ﷺ, there is something called lahad, which we're going to discuss, which is the L-shaped grave. The L-shaped grave. So in that case, the Prophet buried several people in one grave, but he said, whoever amongst them knew the most Quran should be ahead. Okay? What does this mean? Subhanallah, the one,
For him, everybody will go to Jannah.
maybe because of him, everyone will have it easy. Also, for example, who can lead the salah? The one who knows the most of Quran, right? Who can? So he is their imam, which basically imam literally means the one who's in the front. Okay, so basically, even in the grave, even in death, the one who knows the most Quran will be ahead of those people who know less than him. Okay, and this is a recommendation and encouragement to you young guys who are memorizing the Quran, is that by memorizing the Quran you can reach great levels and great rewards, inshallah. So work hard and don't get sick every week, like 2 days. Okay. Shout out to that guy who was sick in his Quran class, but then he came to the Ocean City park and ride day. Okay, so some of the common innovations, and after this we're actually going to do a practical, which is how the person is to be shrouded. So some of the common innovations are, number one, using obviously expensive shroud. We already said that should not be done. Also, writing the deceased's name in the shroud. Okay, it's not from the sunnah. It's like as if maybe in the grave somebody else is gonna come and try to steal his shroud. It's like, hey, my name is here, don't take it. It doesn't make sense, right? It's not from the sunnah. Also, putting in anything on paper, like sometimes people will say, bury him with a mushaf. They will put a mushaf in with him. Okay, this is not to be done. This is not something from the sunnah. Although there is some exception, which is someone who had a personal mushaf. This was the case. We'll discuss that later. Also, writing maybe like the shahada on a piece of paper or any ayat of Quran, putting it in there. None of this is from the sunnah. Writing any dua on the shroud is not from the sunnah. Using more than 3 sheets is not from the sunnah. Using an additional sheet to wrap the deceased private part, okay, is not from the sunnah. Some people, what they will do is that they will do a small piece of cloth and they will wrap their private part with it. And then they will shroud the rest of him in the main shroud, but this is not from the sunnah. Okay, so let's do a practical on how the shrouding is supposed to be done. Basically, it's very simple. So this is actually the work of Sheikh Kamal, and what he did is that he wrapped the shroud from both sides, that it basically opens on both sides. Kareem, can you move out of the way? It just opens like this. Okay, you just roll it out. So it was rolled in like this, and it was basically, it's ready there whenever it's needed. So what you do is that all you have to do for shrouding is that you put the person on top of it, and you just wrap them with it. Okay, so what we're going to do. So now, this is a mannequin, but this is light, right? But in a real case, the person is heavy. That's why Sheikh Kamal did this. So what you do is that to make it easy, what you do is that you put this, here, and you have someone assisting you. Shakab, let's turn this over. So you turn this over and you squeeze this as much as you can, okay? And you open it from this side, okay? And you squeeze it as much as you can. Then what you do is you put the person down, and then you lift him this side, and now he's already on the shroud. Then you open this, okay? And then you put them down. Now, basically, then you open this, Then what you do is very simple. All you have to do is bring it over like this, okay? And bring it over from here like this, okay? And what you can do is that sometimes they will tie something here. Right? Yeah. or sometimes they'll just fold it like this. Can you give us that? Yeah. So these are just like pieces of cloth. They will tie one over here, they'll tie one over here, they'll tie one over here, and they'll tie one over here, just so the shroud doesn't go anywhere. But this is just for the purpose of holding the shroud in place. Okay, because he's not using it, he's not like wearing it or anything like that. When we put them down in the grave, right? So these things, usually they're tied up, but when we put them down in the grave, the last thing we do is we open the ties. Because this is actually not part of the shroud.
Do you do 3 knots or 4 knots?
There are no knots.
No?
No. Whatever knots there are is to just hold the shroud in place. Okay? When you put them down in the grave, when the person is not going to move anymore, then you open the shroud, there's no need for the knots anymore. Okay? And this is not part of the coffin. These are designed to put, it goes under here. So one person can grab it from here, one person can grab it from here, so you can lift the body with these. Okay, because it's kind of difficult to hold the body like this, so you can hold it like this and just lower the body with it. So these are those cloths. Yes.
One person will pick up from here, one over there, one on this side, one on
Yes.
this side.
So this basically gives you a good lift. Yes.
What about the face? As you said, like the face open. You want to cover the face too, or do you want
The covering of the face, actually, we'll discuss that now. Actually, that's a good question. I was going to discuss that. Okay. We'll wrap this up there. Acha, we'll figure it out. Sheikh Kamal, where did he put the cuff? Did he put it inside the cuff?
Put to the wash
the
the body.
Wash the body, yes.
After wash the body, we put the kafur.
And does he put it? Did he used to put it here anywhere?
No.
No. Okay. All right. That's right. That is right.
He
Put it on the body. Maybe put on the forehead. This and that. Yes.
I got a question about lowering the body.
Yes.
I've been to janazas where the people or the relatives, the male, get into the grave and then they're handed the body to put into the grave.
Yes. That's okay. That's fine. I mean, this is just a matter of practicality.
I've seen that way right here. Lower it down. Everybody always usually gets into it.
Yeah, this is just to make it a little bit easier. This is just to make it a little bit easier, especially, actually that's an issue that it happened, this happened in one of the janazas, where there are actually some rules which we're going to discuss in the process of burial, how the body is to be buried, okay? And who can go down into the grave? Who can go down into the grave? There's actually a rule, which is that the Prophet ﷺ said that whoever enters the grave, whoever had marital relations the night before should not enter the grave. Okay? Whoever had marital relations the night before should not enter the grave for the burial. Allahu A'lam what the wisdom behind it is, but this is an authentic hadith from the Prophet ﷺ. Okay? And this happened in the time of Zainab when he was burying his daughter. Okay? So now, many people, they just jump in. Many people, they're like, oh, I'm going to do it, they just jump in. But, this is something that needs to be told that, hey, you know what, only some people can go, not everyone can go. Also, when people go in the grave, the closest relatives have a priority to handle the whole process. Okay? If they are not capable of doing so, if they don't know, or if they don't want to, then someone else can do it. Okay, in one of the janazas, and actually one of the recent janazas, I saw that the son was trying to go down into the grave, and somebody who was not a son or a brother or anyone, he said, no, you don't go. You go back, someone else come in. Right? This is you. He can tell you, you get out. This is my mom. Right? Who are you to tell me I'm not going to go in? Right? So you can't do that. Just like that. Who are the people who handled the Prophet's janazah? Who remembers?
Close enough.
Who were yes? Osama bin Zayd.
Zayed, Fazal.
Osama bin Zayd was kind of like the grandson of the Prophet ﷺ, except that he was not a biological grandson, but in every other sense, he was a grandson of the Prophet, except that he was not a biological one. Right? Osama bin Zayd. Who else? Ali radiallahu anhu. Who is Ali to him? His cousin and his son-in-law. and Fadl ibn Abbas. Who is he? He's also his cousin, right? The son of Abbas. So these are the people who washed the Prophet ﷺ, prepared him for burial, lowered him into the ground, and all of that stuff. So the closest relatives have the right. Another thing we're going to discuss is that when it comes to sisters being buried, women being buried, actually it does not only have to be a mahram to bury them. Okay? The case of the Prophet ﷺ daughter Zainab, she was not buried by her mahrams, although the Prophet was standing and looking at them. Okay? So if it was something haram or forbidden or disliked, the Prophet would not have allowed it. Okay? But the Prophet was standing, her husband, not Zainab, one of his other daughters, her husband Uthman radiallahu anhu was standing, and other people entered the grave. Okay, who were not her biological relatives. So we'll discuss this in more detail. Okay. Now the case of the face. Yes.
It's very important. When they put the body in a grave, it has to be turned to the Qibla.
Yes, we're going to cover the full details of the burial in the burial, which is going to be the next class, inshallah. But one of the things that also happened is that someone put the janazah down on the back. Okay? Basically like laying down on her back. And then the one brother said, turn her to the side. He said, no, she's okay. He said, no, turn her to the side. He had to say it like 2 or 3 times before the person turned her to the right side. Okay? But the way is the sunnah is that actually, just to show you, is that you know how the body is faced, right? It's laying on the back. So actually, the body shouldn't even be like this in the grave. It should actually be like this in the grave. Okay? All the way on the right side. Okay? Like there. Basically, this is how the Prophet used to sleep. Okay? And this way is facing the Qibla. Okay? So this is the way the body should be buried. Almost basically, how would you call this? Horizontally or vertically? Sideways. It's sideways.
It's the thing, like it's not, it's still, it's the horizontal.
Yeah. No. So with regards to this, like which way is it gonna go? You can either put it to the back of the grave, okay, and maybe put some dirt here, or put it to the front of the grave and put some dirt here so that it would not go back down. And then usually the grave is not too narrow, too wide anyways. There's not too much space anyways. But this is actually the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, as we'll discuss. Okay. So it's 9:35.
Supposed to be flat,
No, not supposed to be flat. No, not supposed to be flat. Should be facing the Qibla.
On the right side.
Okay, the next thing, let's get into the next thing. Okay, order in the court. Okay, so let's cover the next thing real quick, inshallah. The next issue is carrying and following the janazah. Carrying and following the janazah. So, number one, what is the ruling on carrying and following the janazah? Is it fard? Is it mustahab? Is it wajib? Is it fard kifaya? What is it? Oh, the face, okay. Should the person's face be covered or uncovered? Covered? Who says covered? Who says uncovered? Why do you say uncovered? You never see anyone covering the face? Okay. Who says covered? Why do you say covered? When we go to all the janazas we do here, they're covered. Okay.
The whole one is covered only the nights or
After the ghusl, we allow to see the face or not?
Okay, so actually this is the whole question of the face, which is that after the ghusl has been done, are we allowed to see the face or not? Okay, so when you look at the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, there are multiple cases where people came and they saw the face of the deceased. They uncovered the face of the deceased and they looked at it, and sometimes they kissed it, sometimes they hugged him, and there are authentic ahadith about this. So actually, this was the opinion of Sheikh Kamal, and with may Allah reward him. He was very, very strong. However, I did a lot of research on this issue. There isn't anything that says it's haram to see the face. However, what is generally mentioned by the scholars that it should not be done is that the way of the Christians and the Jews is that they put the body and everyone gets in a line, okay, and they come one by one and they look at the person and they pay their last respects, okay. This kind of like a showcase of the dead body. This is not something that we ever find in the Sunnah. This is not something that we ever find in the Sunnah. At the same time, I've seen the janazah of a prominent scholar in Pakistan, Dr. Israr Ahmed. His janazah, until he was put in the grave, his face was uncovered. He was carried with his face uncovered. His janazah was prayed in front of the people and his face was uncovered. Everything all the way was uncovered until he was put down in the grave, then they covered his face. Okay? So actually, the evidence on both sides is not to say that it's haram or fard either way. Okay? If let's say we have the janazah and a family member comes and he says, I want to see them, they can see them. Okay? In fact, if we brought the janazah and we left the face open, and people not getting in line, but people as they were carrying the body to the front, they see the body, they see the face, there's no problem in that. It's not haram. Yes?
How about taking the picture at that time?
Taking the picture, yes. Let me get back to you. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, go ahead. No, it's not the same for the woman. Right? It's not the same for the woman. With regards to women, those who can see her face in this dunya, they can see her face in the akhirah, right? In the after death.
It's not allowed to go to the graveyard, the woman.
And we're gonna cover that. We're gonna cover that. Yes. Can you please explain, reply the rule, who should not go to the grave? Okay. This is basically for adults. Okay. Anyone who had marital relations the night before from the men is not supposed to go in the grave. Okay, they had physical relations with their spouse, they're not supposed to go into the grave to put the body down. Yes?
Does that include the cemetery?
We are talking about the cemetery, in the grave, down into the grave to put the body down.
I think the question is probably like whether they are, who is not going in the grave.
No, they can go to the cemetery, they can stand around. The people who will go into the grave and put the body down in the grave, those are the ones that this rule applies to. Okay? Alright. Well, your question was?
About taking the picture.
Taking the picture. Okay. What is the rule on taking the picture? The problem is that we are living in the age of picture. Okay? The problem is that we are living in the age of picture. We are taking a picture while we are sleeping. We are taking a picture while we are eating. We are taking a picture while we are drinking. We are taking a picture when we are in the bathroom. Right? One of the most common pictures you see online is people standing in their bathrooms and taking a selfie. Right? And you see them, like, right behind them is the toilet seat, and sometimes it's even worse than that they're sitting on their toilet and they're taking a selfie.
When we do
Right?
pray, we have pictures.
When we pray, we're taking pictures. When we go to the Kaaba, we're taking pictures. The one says, hey, I want to kiss the black stone, take my picture. One person says, hey, I'm going to go like this to the Kaaba, so take a picture with me in it, with my hands in it, and the Kaaba in it, So, I mean, all of these things is, when it comes to ibadah, you can actually lose your reward. You can lose your reward by showing off in your good deeds. Okay? With regards to doing it for the deceased, this is a fatwa question. Is it allowed? Is it not allowed? Some scholar, this is a question that's above my pay grade. Okay, I can't say anything whether it's halal or haram, because from what I know is that I don't have any evidence to say that it's haram. At the same time, it's not something respectful It's not something respectful. At the same time, sometimes someone has relatives in Pakistan or someone like that, maybe his son or daughter in Pakistan or Bangladesh, and they want to see the janazah and they can't be here, so they say, can you at least show a picture to us? Or sometimes people will turn on Skype and they will see the whole thing. So
You see the drawing and the paintings as you upon the picture, it's like, don't overdo it.
Yeah, just don't overdo it.
Participate the janaza
Who
from overseas?
can they participate the janazah?
Yes.
How will they do that?
Yes,
They have
Skype.
modern science right now.
Huh? Yeah, this guy. I mean,
Video.
once again, if we were in that situation, and a close relative of ours was being buried and we couldn't be there, the least we would like to have is that maybe at least you can show us what's happening. Right? From a personal perspective, that's what I feel. From the Islamic perspective, we have to have evidence to say that it's haram. If we don't have evidence, but we just don't feel comfortable with it, it's not enough to say that this is haram. Okay? So, from me, don't take the answer that either it's halal or haram. Ask another scholar, ask a scholar. I'm not a scholar, ask a scholar who will know and who will give you an answer, and you know what? You can take it or leave it. That kind of thing. So let's move on to the next topic for today, which is carrying the janazah. Carrying the janazah, and a very important issues in it, which is that number one, carrying the janazah is a fard kifaya. Carrying the janazah is fard kifaya, which means that someone needs to do the job. Someone needs to do it. If no one did it, then this would be something that all of us would be sinful for. And also following the janazah, what is the ruling on following the janazah? The Prophet ﷺ said that this is one of the rights that a Muslim has upon his brothers and sisters, that you follow their janazah and you pray the salat janazah over them and follow them. Now with regards to carrying it, the most common way the janazah is carried in our time and in our town is what? The car. You put them in the coffin, usually made of wood, and it goes in. Sometimes the coffin is made not of wood, but it's made of fancy like mahogany wood and this and that kind of stuff. Velvet and foam inside and this and that. So these are actually not ways of the sunnah. These are not ways of the sunnah. It should be the simplest possible, and actually the best thing is that it should be a flat bed. It should be a flat bed. I don't know if you've ever seen it. So imagine if we just carried it on this table. Okay? Why? One of the reasons for this is that the janazah is supposed to remind us of our death. Okay? And one of the ways that we are reminded of our death is actually seeing the body shrouded. Okay? So when we see the whole thing in a very nice coffin made of mahogany wood, and it has gold panels on the side and inside as well, but you're like, you know what? I think I want to die and lay in this thing too. It's so comfy, right? It smells good. It looks beautiful, and this is not the way it's supposed to be. Actually, the best way is that it should be a flat bed. It should have a little bit of a border so that the body doesn't slip to the side and fall, because when people are carrying it, sometimes it can be disbalanced. So it should have that, but it should be open. In fact, when I was doing the research for this, I was thinking that I'm going to tell the funeral home that the next time we have a janazah, I want you to keep it open. Keep the box open, let everyone come and see it actually. See the dead body, to let us feel that one day we'll be there. Okay? This is actually, this is closer to the sunnah. The closest thing is that there's no coffin at all, even the sides as high. Let the people see. If you see in Medina, that's how you can see the whole body. You can see the whole body. How is the body to be carried? Should it be carried lengthwise or widthwise? You see this, right? Should the body be carried like this, or should the body be carried like this, sideways? Sideways. It should be straight like this, right? Lengthwise. However, should the head go first or the feet go first?
Head go first.
There's actually nothing in the Sunnah which specifies it should be head or feet. Okay, but this has just become a common norm, which is that the head go first. Sometimes it is done to just kind of keep track of where the head is, where the feet is, because when you bring him to the masjid and the janazah, you're supposed to pray by the head. And if it's covered and stuff like that, so you want to keep track, this go this way, go that way, that kind of stuff. Yes?
That has to be like face towards the Qibla, so.
The head does not have to be faced towards the Qibla. And when you're carrying the body, when you're carrying the janazah. But when you bury them, yes, they should be facing the Qibla. The whole body should be facing the Qibla. Also, what is the reward of following the janazah? As we mentioned in all the janazahs, that the Prophet ﷺ said that he who follows the janazah with iman and ihtisab, from his house until the prayer is performed, gets a chunk, gets a qirat of reward. And he who also follows it until its burial is completed gets 2 chunks of reward. He was asked, Ya Rasulullah, what are the qirat? What is the qirat, the chunk? He said, they are like 2 great mountains. Each chunk is like the mountain of Uhud. Okay, each chunk, in another hadith, he said, each chunk is greater than the mountain of Uhud. Okay, of reward. And what did we say? How many people have seen the mountain of Uhud?
I saw a picture.
Okay, picture doesn't tell you anything. How big is the mountain of Uhud? Who can tell us? It's big. It's big in 2 ways.
It's a mountain range.
It's a mountain range, and all of it is the mountain of Uhud, right? So the whole thing, actually, the mountain of Uhud is about 6 kilometers long. 6 kilometers long, okay? And how high it is, I mean, we've all seen it. It's very high, right? So that whole thing, that's how much you get the reward for just praying the janazah. If you follow the janazah to the cemetery, then you get 2 of those, okay? So is this a reward? So here's a funny story that Abdullah ibn Umar, he used to pray the janazah and leave. He used to only pray the funeral prayer and leave. When he heard the hadith of Abu Hurairah, which is that, if you follow the janazah, you get 2 chunks. So he thought that he was exaggerating. Ibn Umar, he thought that maybe Abu Hurairah is exaggerating. So he sent Khabbab radiallahu anh to Aisha radiallahu anha to inquire about it, that is this true what Abu Hurairah is saying? In the meantime, he had a handful of pebbles from the ground of the masjid, and he was just kind of playing with it, right? He was just playing with it as he was sitting waiting until the messenger came back, and he said that she says, meaning Aisha radiallahu anha says, Abu Hurairah has spoken the truth. On hearing this, Ibn Umar, he hit the ground with the pebbles regretfully, and he said, indeed we have lost many chunks of reward. Okay, he was kind of like playing, and then when he realized, he went like this. He said, we have missed a lot of reward for not following the janazah. Okay, so this to show that when we hear about a janazah and you get a text message, try to prioritize if you can. Jazakallah khair. Thank you. So then what did Abu Hurairah say about this? Because Abu Hurairah said something and he said, I need to confirm it first, right? So he confirmed it. So then Abu Hurairah, he said that I used to, indeed, neither the market dealings nor the palm planting digressed me from Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I used to stay close to him, hoping for a word that he would teach me, and being satisfied with a bite of food that he would feed me. Okay, what is it saying? Abdullah ibn Umar was there with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam for maybe 12 years he spent with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay, 12 years, like basically, he was born in Mecca. All right, he was born in Mecca, and then when the Prophet came to Medina, then Abdullah ibn Umar at that time was around 13 years old. Okay, in the Battle of Badr, he was 14 years old, and when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam died, he was about 23, 24 years old. Okay, 23, 24 years old. So he spent like 12 years with the Prophet ﷺ, but he didn't know this hadith But Abu Huraira only spent 3 years with the Prophet and he knew this hadith. So when Abu Ibn Umar, he wanted to confirm what Abu Huraira said, so Abu Huraira replied and said, okay, you confirmed it, it's the truth, right? So then he said that when you people were busy in the market and in farming, I was not busy because of the market dealings or the palm plantings that you were doing. I was following the Prophet ﷺ on an empty stomach, hoping to learn something, and that's why I know this hadith even though I only spent 3 years, and you don't know this hadith even though you spent 12 years with the Prophet. Okay, you understand the point? Yes. Okay. So, also there's a very beautiful hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, one day after Salatul Fajr, the Prophet ﷺ, he turned around and he said, who is fasting today? Who is fasting today? So Abu Bakr radiallahu anh said, I am. Then the Prophet said, who among you visited a sick person today? So Abu Bakr said, I did. Then he said, who amongst you has witnessed a janazah today? So Abu Bakr said, I did. And then he said, who amongst you has fed a poor person today? So Abu Bakr said, I did. So the Prophet ﷺ said, never would these acts be performed by one man in one day, but he will enter Jannah. If one person does these 4 things in one day, what are these 4 things? Fasting, visiting the sick, following the janazah, and giving sadaqah. Fasting, giving sadaqah, visiting a sick person, and attending the janazah. If a person does all 4 of these in one day, the Prophet said no one does this in one day except that he will enter Jannah. Okay? So actually this happened at the time of Fajr. And Abu Bakr had already done these things at Fajr time. Can you imagine? Umar said, Ya Rasulullah, is this Fajr time? But he said, you know what? That's what makes Abu Bakr Abu Bakr. Right? That at Fajr time, he's already done these things. He went to the house of an old lady who was sick, and he went and he used to clean her house. Okay? And he found a man need of food, so he gave him some food. And there was a janazah, he attended that janazah, and he was fasting that day. So all of these things were combined. So the next time if you hear that there's a janazah tomorrow, so the night before you get the thing, so now you can fast in the morning, you can give some sadaqah, attend the janazah, and you can ask if there's any sick, and we can go and visit the sick person. Actually, the brother who died yesterday, Brother Yaqub Khan, one day there was a janazah here that we all attended, and we said we need to visit a sick person. So we actually went to visit him. And subhanAllah, yesterday he died. So, what are the recommended acts with regards to the transportation of the janazah? Number 1, the janazah should be hurried. It should be hurried. And the Prophet ﷺ said that the person who died, and he's a righteous person, he says, what are you delaying me for? Hurry up, let's go. Hurry up, let's go. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said that hurry with the funeral. Hurry with the funeral. If it is a good person, then you bring it forward to its good destination. And if it is other than that, if it's an evil person, meaning, then you drop the evil quickly off your neck. If it's good, then he's waiting for his goodness in the grave. Hurry up, get him there. And if he's evil, then just get rid of him as soon as possible. So either way, you should hurry the janazah. And it doesn't only mean the janazah, carrying the janazah, but it also means the whole process of janazah should be hurried. Okay? If you can do it today rather than tomorrow, then do it today. Okay? The thing is that over here, you can only do the janazah in daytime. Okay? So if you can do the janazah, if someone dies today, if you can do the janazah tomorrow, do the janazah tomorrow. Don't wait any extra day if you can. Okay? Where should you walk with the janazah? Should you walk ahead of the janazah or behind the janazah? So the Prophet ﷺ said, Al-Raqibu yamshi khalf al-janazah. Okay? If someone is riding an animal, then he should ride behind the janazah. And the one who's walking, he can walk anywhere. He can walk anywhere. And the Prophet ﷺ and Abu Bakr and Umar, they used to walk in front of the janazah and they used to walk behind the janazah, meaning there is no preference as long as you're close to the janazah. As long as you are close to the janazah. Should you walk or ride? Should you walk or ride the janazah? So obviously living in America, we can't really ride the janazah. We can't really walk the janazah. We have to go in the cars, right? Because the distances here are too great. But in Muslim countries, the cemeteries are close by usually. So if you can, it is preferred to do the whole thing walking. If you can, it's preferred to do the whole thing walking. Also, standing for the janazah. Should you, if the janazah passes you, should you stand up for it? So actually the Prophet ﷺ initially, he used to stand up for the janazah. He used to stand up for the janazah, but there are authentic reports that later on he stopped doing that and he would sit down. He would not stand up. So it seems that this was something which was there originally and then it was abrogated. Okay, so now you don't have to stand up for the janazah. You don't have to stand up for the janazah. There should be no screaming in the janazah. There should be no type of fire in the janazah. Okay, screaming meaning that some of the people, what they used to do is that when the janazah would be carried, there would be someone following the janazah who would make crying sounds so that it would make other people cry. Okay, this is not from the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. In fact, this is a severe sin. Also, the janazah should not be followed with fire. What is an example of following the janazah with a fire? Candles. Candles is one of them, and also big size candles, which are basically torches. Real torch, like not like a flashlight torch, but a real torch, which is basically, you have this thing and there's a fire on top of it and you hold it. So it should not be done unless it is done for lighting, for light purpose. If sometimes it's dark or something like that. So it should not be followed with the janazah, but it should be maybe ahead of the janazah to guide, and there could be one at the grave so people could see what's going on. Any other sounds at the janazah should not be done. Janazah should be a quiet affair. It should be a quiet affair. So sometimes, some non-Muslims, they will play funeral music. Funeral music. This is obviously definitely not from the sunnah. Sometimes people raise their voices in making dhikr. Okay? So they will say, kalma shahadat. Right? Like basically say the shahada. But this is again not from the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Also, sometimes some people, what they will do is that they will follow the janazah and they will recite Quran out loud. They will recite Quran out loud. Again, this is not from the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ as well. Okay, here comes the question. Can the women follow the janazah? Can the women follow the janazah? Yes.
They can't. No, they can't.
So while you were raising your hand, you were thinking, can they or can they not?
I was gonna say like they can follow, like.
Okay, what else? Who says yes, they can follow the janazah? Who says no, they cannot follow the janazah? Okay, who says yes? Why do you say yes?
I don't know why, just, they can not go, if they in the car, stay in the car, they don't come into the grave.
Okay, who says no? Why do you say no?
Well, the woman in general is not recommended to go do her prayers in the mosque. So, if I think about it that way, she shouldn't follow the janazah for the same reason.
Okay.
I think one of the reasons why they don't want the woman going to the cemetery because it's like flying.
Definitely, okay, let's just take this hadith. The hadith is in Bukhari and Muslim and others. Atiyah radiyallahu anha, she reported, Allah's Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam prohibited us, the women, from following the janazah. He prohibited us from following the janazah, but did not enforce that on us. Okay? He prohibited us, he said don't go to the janazah. But if any woman came, he did not kick them out. Okay? But if there are any, there's actually a hadith where the Prophet ﷺ, there was a lady, she was crying in the cemetery, and the Prophet told her to be patient, and she said, you don't know what happened to me, and this and that, and then, she regretted later on, that's a different story. But basically, the Prophet ﷺ told the woman not to go to the cemetery, but if they did go, he did not enforce it on them. Do you understand this? He did not enforce it on them. This is a hadith in Bukhari. Okay? So meaning that if they do go, number one, they should stay behind. Because the men are the ones who are involved and it's tight and everything, they should stay behind. They should not go anyways. If they happen to be there for some reason, they should stay away and they should stay in control. They should stay in control. No crying out loud, no making noises or anything like that. That is definitely not allowed. Okay? And the last thing is that the janazah should be, as we mentioned, that janazah should be open. Janazah should be open. So meaning that the body should be visible if possible, right? So the next time, inshallah, we'll try to have the janazah just like this. So you can see the body in the shroud because it is supposed to remind us of our death. And inshallah, we will cover some of the common misconceptions with regards to following the janazah next week, inshallah. And we will stop for salah. Okay, the next week we will not have this. On next Saturday we will not have this, but we will have it the following Saturday. Okay, we will have this the following Saturday. Was the sign-up sheet sent upstairs? Where's the sign-up sheet? Okay. You did take it upstairs? You took it up? Okay, alright. Alright, Jazakallah khair. We'll stop here. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik. Nashhadu an la ilaha illa ant. Nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.